Romance of Sui and Tang Dynasties Chapter 87.
We are looking at a moment in time that just perfectly captures that feeling of the calm before the storm.
Exactly. Chapter 87 of the Sui Tang Yani. That's the
Mhm.
romance of the Sui and Tang dynasties.
Yeah.
And before we get into the weeds, we should probably clarify for everyone.
Yeah.
This is not a dry history textbook.
No, not at all. It's historical fiction written way later in the 17th century about stuff that happened in the 8th century. So you're getting history, but with a real narrative arc.
Think of it like a prestige historical drama,
Mhm.
based on real events.
That's a great way to put it. It keeps the big historical beats accurate. The people, the dates, the wars, but it dramatizes the private moments. It's trying to get at the psychological truth of these characters.
And the truth of Chapter 87 is, well, it's devastating. It's about the court of Emperor Xuanzang and his legendary consort, Yang Guifei.
Right at the absolute peak of the Tang dynasty's power, the High Tang era.
The era everyone romanticizes. The poetry, the art, the wealth.
Yeah.
But our mission today is to look at the underbelly of that.
Yes, because the source text has a very specific agenda here. It wants to show us how a society that's addicted to luxury makes itself blind to its own destruction.
It's a case study in denial and in a very, very weird twist.
Uh-huh.
We're also going to find out the origin story of why the number 4 on Chinese dice is painted red.
Which is such a fascinating little detail buried in all this epic political drama.
That's a piece of trivia I absolutely love.
Mhm.
But let's start with the heavy stuff. The chapter opens with this philosophical hammer drop. It says, life and death have destiny, and wealth and honor are in heaven.
It feels a little fatalistic right off the bat.
It does, doesn't it?
But it sets the stakes. The author is warning us about what he calls unreasonable men, people who try to force destiny, who try to, hack the system to get power they haven't earned.
People who are sinning against heaven, as the text says.
Exactly. It's basically the author telling the reader, don't get too impressed by the luxury you're about to see, because the bill is coming due.
So let's talk about the context.
Oh.
Who's running up this bill? We've got the Emperor, Xuanzang. Where is he mentally at this point?
Mentally, he's checked out. He's literally at a place called the Tower of Diligent Administration.
Oh, the irony.
The irony is thick, because he's using it for parties, not administration. He's granting amnesties, feasting all night. In his mind, the world is at peace. The text says he believes there are no ominous signs.
He's coasting.
He thinks the hard work is done and he can just coast. He's suffering from what you might call executive isolation. He doesn't see any ominous signs because he's surrounded himself with people who make sure he never sees one.
Right. And the chief architect of that isolation is our villain for this chapter, Yang Guizhong.
He's the prime minister, and this is crucial, he's the cousin of the favorite consort, Yang Guifei.
Nepotism at its finest. The source describes him as a gatekeeper. If you want anything from the emperor, you have to go through him.
And because of that, his doorstep is described as being as crowded as a marketplace. Everyone is flocking to him, trying to get his favor.
But this is where the source introduces a character I find fascinating. A man named Zhang Tuan.
Yes, he's a candidate for a government post from Shanjun. He's an outsider looking in.
And he sees things differently. Everyone else is looking at the prime minister, Yang Guizhong, and they're thinking, wow, this guy is as solid as a mountain.
Specifically Mount Tai. In Chinese culture, Mount Tai is the symbol of stability. It's one of the 5 great mountains. It's permanence.
So people think, if I just cling to him, I'm safe.
Right. His power seems immovable.
But Zhang Tuan looks at him and says, nope, that's not Mount Tai.
He says that is an ice mountain.
It's such a brilliant metaphor.
It really is. He says, when the blazing sun comes out, the ice mountain melts, and those relying on it lose their footing.
Think of the physics of that for a second. A mountain of rock is stable no matter what. Rain, shine, snow. It's rock.
But an ice mountain, its stability is conditional. It's only solid as long as the political temperature stays freezing cold.
And in politics, the temperature never stays cold forever.
Never. Zheng Kuang gets it. He realizes that Yang Guizhong's power isn't built on merit or law. It's built on the emperor's favor, which is fickle, and on corruption, which is unsustainable.
It looks solid, it feels hard, but it's chemically destined to just change state.
And if you're standing on top of an ice mountain when the sun comes out, you don't just fall.
No, you drown.
Yeah.
The foundation itself just vanishes from under you.
So what does Zhang Tuan do? Does he try and fight it? Try to expose the prime minister?
No. And I think this is the really smart, or at least the realistic part of the story. He realizes you can't fight that level of delusion.
You can't reason with an entire system that's chosen to believe in ice.
Exactly. So he just refuses to play the game. He's afraid the wave of destruction will hit him if he gets too close. So he resigns his post and just retreats, goes to live on Mount Song.
That takes some serious courage, to just walk away from the center of power because you see a crash coming that literally no one else does.
It's like selling all your stock in a booming market because you bothered to read the footnotes in the annual report.
And it sets up this perfect contrast. You have the emperor with all the information in the world believing in a fake peace.
And you have this one scholar with no power who sees the reality crystal clear. It really makes you question the quality of information leaders get when they only have yes men around them.
Speaking of being surrounded, let's pivot to the person at the very center of this ice mountain, Consort Yang Guifei.
Right. The source goes into some absolutely wild detail about the luxury that just swirls around her.
It's staggering. The text says there are hundreds of people, literally hundreds employed just for embroidery, carving, and weaving for her household.
And the bribery is insane. It says officials get promoted just for bringing her strange and delightful gifts.
So the entire government has basically become a personal shopping service for one woman.
Meritocracy is dead. It's all about who can find the prettiest trinket.
Yeah.
And this leads us to a very specific, very vivid scene in the text, the horse riding scene.
Yes. Normally, a consort for status would be in a carriage, a very private, slow sedan chair.
Right. But Yang Guifei decides she wants to ride a horse.
And this isn't just, hopping on a pony. The emperor orders the royal stables to find the absolute best horse, pure and good. And when she rides, she has dozens of maids and eunuchs literally running alongside her.
Just to make sure she doesn't fall. And the visual is crazy. You have the most powerful eunuch in the entire empire, Gao Lishi, holding her whip for her.
That's like, I don't know, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs holding the First Lady's purse. It shows her total dominance over the court.
And her appearance is key, too. The text describes her as wearing tight makeup and narrow sleeves, a light shirt.
She's dressed for allure, for speed, not for the heavy, formal ceremonies of the court. She's playing a role.
And the emperor's just eating it up. They're riding together, racing back and forth, and there's this banter between them that's surprisingly intimate.
It is. She teases him, says she's a novice compared to his hunting skills, and he jokes back. He says something like, I might win at horse riding, but in the field of romance, I have to let you win.
Wow. Okay, Your Majesty.
And she fires right back. She says he's old but strong. They're laughing. They're having the time of their lives. It sounds like a scene from a rom-com.
This is where things get a little spooky.
Yeah.
Because the text doesn't just leave it there as a happy moment, does it?
No, it doesn't. And this is why you have to read the source material itself, not just a summary. The author drops a poem right in the middle of this happy scene.
And what does it say?
It says, today we see the fat maid pretending to ride a horse, a foreshadowing of the year she arrives at Maui.
Maui. As in Maui Slope.
Yes. And for anyone who knows the history, Maui Slope is the end of the line. It's where the army finally mutinies during the rebellion.
And they blame her and her family for everything.
They blame Yang Guifei and her cousin, the prime minister, for the ruin of the empire. And they force the emperor to have her executed right there. It's a tragic, bloody, awful end.
So this playful scene of her riding a horse
is a grim rehearsal. She's playing at riding now for fun. But the text is telling us, look closely, because soon she will be fleeing for her life on horseback, with no fun, no servants, no escape.
The source is just layering this moment of joy with the shadow of death.
It's so heavy. And it perfectly reinforces that idea of the blindness of power. They're literally practicing their escape and laughing about it.
And that theme of play acting at disaster, it just continues right into the next segment, doesn't it? This thing called the wind and flow array.
The Fengliu Zen, wind and flow, usually sounds romantic.
Yeah, like something cultural elegant.
It usually refers to style, romance, a kind of carefree attitude. But here, they apply it to war.
And it sounds like the strangest party game ever invented.
It really is. So after they've been drinking, Yang Guifei gets about 100 palace maids.
Okay.
And the emperor gets 100 young eunuchs. And they stage a mock battle in the palace courtyard.
With real weapons?
No. That's the thing. They use brocade quilts, these beautiful silk blankets, as their battle flags.
Quilts as flags.
Yeah.
Got it.
They have small gongs and drums. And for weapons, they use bamboo poles.
So you had the Emperor of China and his favorite consort running around a courtyard with bamboo sticks and fancy blankets, screaming at each other.
Basically, yes. And there are stakes. If the maids win, the eunuchs have to drink these huge goblets of wine, and the emperor has to drink first.
And if eunuchs win?
The maids have to sing, and Guifei herself has to play the pipa, which is a kind of lute.
It sounds like fun, in a vacuum, like a weird corporate team-building exercise.
But again, context is everything. The source says the people of the time were horrified. They saw it as an ominous sign.
Why? Just because it's undignified for an emperor to be doing that?
It's deeper than dignity. It's about what's happening in the real world outside the palace walls. At this exact moment, on the borders of the empire, real generals and Lushan are gathering real armies.
They're sharpening real swords.
Exactly. So by turning war into this wind and flow game, the emperor is showing a total, profound disconnect from reality.
It's the ultimate Nero fiddling while Rome burns moment. Except here, it's Xuanzang playing with bamboo sticks while the Tang dynasty crumbles.
Precisely. The text even quotes a poem that says, "The palace people learn to act as battlefield people. Alas, the play eventually becomes real."
It's a warning. By inviting the aesthetic of chaos into the palace.
You're inviting the reality of it. It's like they're tempting fate. They're shouting, "Look how fun war is." And fate is listening and saying, "Okay, if you insist, let me show you what war actually looks like."
So in this particular mock battle, the maids win, right?
They do. Team Guifei takes the victory.
And this leads us to the final and maybe the most surprising part of our source, the origin of the red 4 on dice.
We go from impending geopolitical collapse to board game trivia.
But they're connected. It's all about luck and the illusion of control.
It is. So the mock battle's over. The emperor lost the bet. He's being punished and has to drink these massive goblets of wine.
A serious hangover is on the horizon.
But Yang Guifei takes pity on him. She says, "You shouldn't have to drink all this. Let's gamble for it."
Ah, a true gambler's spirit. Double or nothing.
Pretty much. She says, "If you can beat me at dice, I'll let you off the hook." So Gao Lishi, the eunuch, brings out the dice basin.
The tension must have been high.
Yeah.
Not for the fate of the empire, but just no one wants to drink that much wine.
Exactly. So they start to roll. First roll, no clear winner. Second roll, it's a tie. But by the third roll, Guifei is winning. The emperor's backed into a corner.
What does he need to get?
He needs to roll a double 4. 2 4s. That's the only roll that can turn his defeat into a victory.
The odds of that are not great.
Not great at all. And he rolls the dice. They're spinning in the basin.
Yeah.
And the emperor of the Tang dynasty, the son of heaven, starts shouting at these little pieces of bone.
No!
Yes. He's yelling, "Double 4! Double 4!"
I can just picture this. The most powerful man in the world screaming at dice like some guy in a Vegas casino at 3 in the morning.
It's such a human moment, isn't it? He's not an emperor right then. He's just a desperate gambler. And here's the kicker. The dice stop. And they land on double 4s.
You're kidding me.
Not kidding. He pulls it off. He turns defeat into victory. And he is so overjoyed. Remember, he's a bit drunk. He's high on the adrenaline of the game that he decides the dice themselves need a reward.
He rewards the dice.
He rewards the dice. He turns to Gao Lishi and says, "This double 4 suits my wishes perfectly." And he orders that the number 4 on the dice be colored with cinnabar, a bright red, to honor it.
To give it the official color of the court.
Exactly. And that's why, even today, if you find a traditional set of Chinese dice, the 4 is often painted red.
Specifically the 4.
Specifically the 4, all from this one moment of Emperor Xuanzang shouting at a table to avoid having to drink too much wine.
That is wild. It's a permanent cultural mark left by a completely fleeting moment of joy.
It is. But the source text, being the moral critique that it is, doesn't let us leave on that happy note.
Of course not.
It ends the section with a really poignant poem. It says something like, "The dice received crimson imperial favor." But then it twists it. It says, "If only he had entrusted his red heart, his loyalty like this, the emperor's grace would never have perished."
Whoa, so it's playing on the two meanings of red. The red paint on the dice and the red heart of loyalty.
Exactly. It's a savage critique of his priorities. The text is saying he gave his highest favor to a piece of bone because it helped him avoid a minor inconvenience.
But he failed to give that same favor, that same attention, to the loyal ministers who could have actually saved his empire.
He's rewarding luck, not loyalty.
And that brings the whole Ice Mountain idea full circle. He's so focused on these tiny, trivial victories. I won the dice game, I won the horse race.
While the massive structural problems are just melting away right underneath him.
That's the real tragedy of Chapter 87, isn't it? It's a study in distraction. The luxury, the games, the romance.
Mhm.
It's all just a way to avoid the actual job of ruling.
And the tragedy is that Xuanzang wasn't necessarily a bad man. He was just blind. He truly thought the mountain was made of stone. He thought the dice would always come up double fours.
The scene shifts.
We are dropping you right into the middle of the most opulent high-stakes party in the history of China. The air is thick with imported incense and vintage wine. The room is, draped in silk.
Total sensory overload.
And in the center of it all, you have the emperor of the Tang dynasty, just completely wasted, playing a board game.
But not on a table.
Not on a table. He's playing on the back of his chief eunuch, who is on his hands and knees on the floor, terrified to even breathe.
It sounds like a hallucination, doesn't it? But this is the world we're stepping into today. It's a scene of just absolute excess.
And the only voice of reason in the entire room?
A parrot.
A white parrot watching from the rafters.
That's the setup. And honestly, this might be one of the strangest, most symbolic stories we have ever covered.
I am so ready for this. We've got gambling, we've got talking animals, and we have a fashion trend that is, frankly, the most morbid thing I've ever heard of.
It's a lot. On the surface, this just looks like a funny story about a drunk emperor.
It disguises itself as a comedy, sure, but the mission of this is to look at how this story frames the fall of an empire.
Ah.
This text uses a pet bird, the snow-clad girl, to illustrate the peak of the Tang dynasty's decadence and the very subtle supernatural warnings that it was all about to come crashing down.
It's the calm before the storm.
Oh,
Or the party before the massive empire-ending hangover.
exactly. The High Tang era is legendary for its glamour, its poetry, its wealth, but this source material is peeling back the curtain to show us the rot underneath.
Okay, so let's unpack this scene by scene. We open right in the middle of the action. Emperor Xuanzang and his favorite consort, the legendary Yang Guofei, are drinking and rolling dice.
And context is key here. Xuanzang is in his later years. He's been on the throne for a long time. He has largely checked out of the boring business of governing.
He's in his retirement phase. He just wants to enjoy life with Yang Guifei. And Yang Guifei. Well, she is often cited as one of the four great beauties of ancient China. They are a celebrity power couple, and they're obsessed with each other.
And apparently obsessed with winning. The text says the emperor is winning the game. He's shouting, he's laughing, just having the time of his life. And then the vibe shifts.
Yeah.
A single die rolls off the table and hits the floor.
Enter Gao Lishi. Now, we need to be clear about who this man is. In the story, he's scrambling on the floor. But historically,
He's important.
Gao Lishi was a titan. He was the chief eunuch. He controlled access to the emperor. He was arguably the second or third most powerful person in the entire country.
So picture a chief of staff or a prime minister level figure.
Right. And he scrambles onto the floor to pick up this little piece of bone or ivory. And seeing him down there in such a submissive position, it gives the drunken emperor an idea.
A terrible, impulsive idea.
A terrible one.
This is the prank I mentioned. The emperor grabs the heavy basin they use for rolling dice. And these weren't, light plastic cups. They were heavy ceramics or metal. And he just plops it onto Gao Lishi's back.
It creates an instant dehumanizing tableau. He drags Yang Guifei down to the floor, and they start using this powerful official as a human coffee table.
The text is really specific about the physical toll this takes, isn't it?
It is visceral. It describes Gao Lishi on his hands and knees, planting his hands firmly on the ground to brace himself. He is terrified to shift his weight even an inch.
Because if the basin slides...
He ruins the emperor's game. And meanwhile, the emperor and the consort are shouting 4 and 6 right next to his ears, slamming dice onto his spine.
It's such a vivid image of tyranny, but dressed up as fun. The most powerful people in the world treating a human being like furniture just because they can.
And that is when the intervention happens. It doesn't come from a guard or an advisor. It comes from above.
From the roof beam, they hear this chatter, this yee-yee-ya-ya sound, and then a clear voice cuts through the noise.
The white parrot speaks. It says, "Your Majesty and Her Highness only care about throwing 4 and 6. Also, let Gao Lishi stand up and straighten his waist."
I love that. The
Yep.
bird essentially says, hey, read the room, let the guy up.
It did. And the tension in the room must have been thick for a split second. A pet just criticized the emperor.
Yeah, that's a risky move.
But here is where it gets really interesting. We have to look at the original language to catch the brilliance of what this bird just did. Because it wasn't just a moral scolding, it was a pun.
Oh, I love a good linguistic deep dive. This is the stuff you miss in translation. So what did the bird actually say?
Okay, so the bird says, straighten the waist. In the language of the time, that phrase sounded like zizi ya.
ZZ, okay, got it.
But remember, they're playing a dice game. And in this specific gambling game, there's a term for throwing ones, the lowest roll you can get.
Right.
That term is zizi ya.
Ah, I see. So throwing ones and straightening the waist sound almost exactly the same.
Almost identical. The parrot used a gambling term, throw ones, which sounds like straighten the waist. It was speaking the emperor's language, the language of the game, to advocate for the servant.
That is incredibly witty. It's like it beat the emperor at his own game.
It is, and it worked perfectly. The text says the emperor and Yang Guifei just burst out laughing. The cleverness of the pun broke the tension.
And Gao Lishi gets up.
They ordered the attendants to take the dice basin away and finally allowed Gao Lishi to get up.
Saved by a parrot. But this isn't just a random bird they picked up at a market, is it? The text gives us a very specific backstory for this creature.
And this is where the political foreshadowing really kicks in. The parrot is described as a snow-clad girl, pure white, incredibly intelligent, and tame.
It's never in a cage.
Never in a cage. It flies freely around the palace and stays by Yang Guifei's side.
Snow-clad girl is such a beautiful name. It sounds so innocent.
It does. But the crucial detail is the source of the bird. The text explicitly states this bird was a gift from Lushan when he first entered the palace to meet Yang Guifei.
And Lushan. Okay, for anyone who doesn't have their Tang Dynasty history chart handy, dropping that name is like hearing the soundtrack change from a major key to a minor key.
Precisely. Lushan is the general who will eventually lead the massive rebellion that brings the Tang Dynasty to its knees. He is the villain of this era.
But at this point in the story, he's just a charmer.
He's trying to curry favor. So this beloved pet, this symbol of joy and wisdom in the palace, is actually a Trojan horse of sorts.
A gift from the man who will destroy them. That is heavy irony. The smartest being in the room, the one with a moral compass, was given to them by the traitor.
Exactly. And Yang Guifei loves this bird. She treats it like a treasure. But as the story progresses, things take a turn toward the supernatural. The bird starts acting strange.
Right. It stops being the fun party guest. One day, the snow-clad girl flies to Yang Guifei's vanity table, her makeup station, and looks absolutely miserable.
Yeah, it's not happy.
And it tells her it had a nightmare. A bird having a nightmare. That's unsettling.
Deeply unsettling.
What did it see?
It says it dreamt it was attacked by a bird of prey, a Z bird, and it feels its life is coming to an end. It says, I fear my fate is limited.
It's a premonition. The bird knows death is coming. Now, if I'm Yang Guifei and my talking psychic bird says I'm going to die, I am locking the windows. I am calling the guards.
You would think.
Mm-hmm.
But this highlights the mindset of the court. They're superstitious, but they aren't practical.
Right.
Yang Guifei dismisses the dream as just a dream.
Mm-hmm.
But she wants to help, so she offers a spiritual solution. She tells the bird, if you are anxious, recite the Prajnaparamita Heart Sutra.
The Heart Sutra. That isn't a nursery rhyme. That is deep Buddhist philosophy. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form.
It is the core text of emptiness and wisdom.
Yeah.
Yang Guifei seems to treat it almost like a protective spell.
So what does she do?
She orders incense to be lit, gets out her handwritten copy of the sutra, and recites it. The parrot listens, and the text makes a very specific point here.
Which is?
The bird learned it after hearing it only twice.
Twice. I can't remember a phone number if you tell it to me twice.
It's meant to show the bird has a Buddha nature. It has a spiritual capacity that rivals or even exceeds the humans in the palace.
Wow.
For the next few months, this parrot becomes a monk. It flies around chanting the Heart Sutra day and night, sometimes out loud, sometimes just silently moving its beak.
So we have a chanting, free-roaming parrot flying through the golden halls, but the nightmare wasn't just a nightmare, was it?
No. The omen has to be fulfilled. This brings us to the scene in the rear garden. The emperor and Yang Guifei are out enjoying the day, and the emperor is holding a slingshot and shooting at magpies.
Just casually shooting birds while his wife watches from a tower.
It highlights the casual violence of the court. Life is cheap to them. But while the emperor is playing at hunting, a real hunter walks by.
Uh-oh.
An attendant carrying a blue hawk or a falcon on his arm passes under the tower where Yang Guifei is sitting. The parrot is on the windowsill.
And the hawk sees the parrot.
Immediately. It's instinct. The hawk launches off the attendant's arm and dives at the windowsill. The parrot screams, "Not good," and tries to scramble inside.
It's a horror movie moment.
It is. And it's a matter of inches. A maid standing nearby has a whisk, basically a dusting tool made of horsehair.
Right. Right.
And she reacts instantly. She swings it with all her might and manages to hit the hawk right in the eye. The hawk flinches and flies off.
That is a close call, so the bird survives.
Physically, yes. The parrot didn't get eaten, but the text says it fainted or looked dead on the floor. When it finally wakes up, Yang Guifei tries to comfort it. She says, "It's okay, nothing happened."
But the parrot knows better. What does it say?
It tells her, "The nightmare has come true." It
Yeah.
says the shock shattered its gall, its heart. It survived the hawk because of the merit of the sutra, but its physical life is over. The fear itself killed it.
That's heartbreaking. It's like the bird is saying, I can escape the hawk, but I can't escape the terror of this world.
It gets even more profound. The bird stops eating. It stops speaking in normal sentences. It only chants the sutra
For 3 days.
for 3 days. Then it speaks one last time. It tells Yang Guifei that thanks to the sutra, it is shedding its skin and feathers to be reborn in the Pure Land, the Western Paradise.
Oh.
It tells her to take care of herself. Then it faces west, folds its wings, and dies standing up,
Standing up.
like an enlightened master. The text actually includes a poem here that asks a really biting question.
What's the question?
Animals possess Buddha nature. The parrot is enlightened while humans are ignorant. How can a human be inferior to a bird?
That really is the crux of it, isn't it? The bird achieves spiritual liberation. It leaves the game. Meanwhile, the emperor and Yang Guifei are still stuck in this cycle of drinking, gambling, and shooting magpies.
Precisely. The bird shed its skin and moved on. The humans are trapped in their skin, in the material world. And speaking of skin, this leads us to the most disturbing part of
The aftermath.
the aftermath of the bird's death.
Right, because they don't just bury the bird and move on. This sparks a trend.
First, there's genuine grief. Yang Guifei buries the bird in a silver container, a parrot tomb, and the emperor is actually quite moved.
He is.
In a moment of reflection, he releases all the other talking parrots in the palace. He asks them if they miss home. They shout, "Long live the emperor," and he sends them back to the forests of the south.
Which is a surprisingly sweet human moment for the emperor.
It is.
Yeah.
But then we focus on Yang Guifei. She misses the snow-clad girl terribly. The text says she cries frequently. And apparently Yang Guifei was so stunning that even when she was crying, she looked incredibly beautiful.
Like a painting of sorrow.
Exactly. And people noticed.
The other palace women noticed. They saw that the emperor found Yang Guifei's tear-stained face charming. So what did they do?
They started faking it.
No way. They started cosplaying her grief.
Yes. The source describes a new makeup style called tear makeup, or Lace Wong. The ladies of the court would apply white powder to their cheeks in a specific way to simulate the streaks of tears.
So they were painting fake grief onto their faces to look trendy.
That's it.
That is morbid. It's like wearing a funeral veil as a party accessory.
It's incredibly morbid. And the expert commentary within the source material points this out immediately. It calls this a massive ill omen.
Because they're simulating sadness.
Exactly. The poem referenced in the text says, "Fake tears today foreshadow the sorrowful state at Maowei Slope."
Maowei Slope.
Maowei Slope is the end of the line. When Lushan finally launches his rebellion, the emperor and Yang Guifei are forced to flee the capital. They stop at a place called Maowei Slope.
And the army mutinies.
They mutiny. They blame Yang Guifei for the disaster, and they force the emperor to order her execution. That is where she dies.
So the text is saying, you're painting faked tears on your face now for fashion, but soon you will be crying real tears at Maowei Slope.
It's a devastating irony. The tear makeup becomes a rehearsal for their own destruction. They were painting their fate onto their faces and calling it beauty.
That gives me chills. And there's one final layer to this grief that the text mentions. It explains why she was so sad.
Right. The text uses an idiom here. Love the house, love the crow. Aiwu-ji-wu.
What does that mean exactly?
It means if you love someone, you love everything associated with them, even the crows sitting on their roof. You love the accessories of the person.
And in this case?
The text explicitly states that Yang Guifei loved the parrot so much because she was feeling for the object while thinking of the person. She was thinking of the giver.
In Lushan.
Yes. Her grief wasn't just for a pet. It was rooted in her affection for An Lushan, the man who gave it to her.
So let me get this straight. Her grief for the bird spawned this cursed makeup trend. But that grief was rooted in her love for the very man who was secretly plotting the rebellion that would eventually kill her.
It's a perfect circle of tragedy. The bird was a gift from the traitor. The bird warns them of danger. They ignore the warning. The bird dies. The grief for the bird creates a fashion trend that mimics the tragedy to come. all while the emperor is drunk and playing games. You know the story of the Trojan horse, right?
Oh yeah, the classic cautionary tale. The Greeks, they leave this giant wooden horse, call it a gift. The Trojans bring it inside their walls, and surprise, it's full of soldiers.
And they burn the city down. Exactly.
Yeah.
Beware of Greeks bearing gifts. Well, today we're looking at a real-life version of that. But instead of a wooden horse, we're talking about 3,000 real, breathing, very expensive horses.
And instead of Greeks, we have the infamous general Lushan.
Right. This incredible chess match between a rebel-in-waiting and an emperor who, quite frankly, just did not want to see the truth.
It really is the breath before the plunge. I mean, anyone who knows Chinese history knows the Lushan rebellion absolutely shatters the Tang dynasty. It's one of the most devastating conflicts in human history.
It is.
But the psychological maneuvering right beforehand. The war before the war, if you will.
It's such a fascinating setup. You have this general, Lushan. He is arguably the most powerful man in the empire outside the emperor himself. He's up north in Fanyang, he's armed to the teeth, and he is ready to rebel.
But he hasn't pulled the trigger yet.
So why not?
And that is the core conflict of this chapter. And Lushan is a really complex figure here. He's ambitious, yes, and he hates the prime minister, Yang Guzong, with just a burning passion. They're total arch rivals.
Okay.
But the source material suggests Lushan has this strange, almost twisted loyalty to Emperor Xuanzong personally.
It's like a dysfunctional family. He loves the father figure, the emperor, but he wants to kill the brother, the prime minister.
Yeah, precisely. His plan, his ideal plan, is to wait for the emperor to die of natural causes. He thinks, if I just wait, I can take out the prime minister later without betraying the man who gave me everything.
But the prime minister, Yang Guzong, he's not making that easy, is he?
Not at all. He's constantly poking on Lushan, trying to provoke him, basically trying to get him to show his hand to prove to the emperor that An Lushan is a traitor.
So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. He pushes An Lushan, which makes An Lushan want to rebel, which proves him right.
And it works. And Lushan decides he can't just sit there and take it. He needs to test the waters, see if he can move a massive army into the capital without technically declaring war.
And this leads us to the main event, the Trojan horse strategy, or maybe the Trojan horses, all 3,000 of them.
Yeah.
So let's unpack this proposal because it is just so bold. And Lushan sends a memorial, which is basically a formal petition to the emperor. He says, "Your Majesty, my region produces the finest horses in the world. I have hand-selected 3,000 elite steeds to donate to the imperial stables."
As a sign of my undying love and loyalty. I mean, you have to understand the context. In the Tang dynasty, horses were strategic assets. They were like fighter jets.
Right.
So 3,000 elite war horses, that's a fortune. On the surface, it's a gift no emperor would want to turn down. It just screams loyalty.
But then you read the fine print, and this is where the whole Trojan horse thing kicks in. Because, well, horses don't just drive themselves to the capital.
Right. So An Lushan lays out these very specific conditions for how these horses are delivered. He claims that because they're such high-quality, wild, spirity animals, they need special handling.
Okay.
So he tells the emperor that for every single horse, he needs 2 of his own soldiers to manage it.
Wait, okay, let's just pause and do the math on that. 2 soldiers per horse times 3,000 horses. That's 6,000 soldiers.
That's 6,000 soldiers just for handling. But he doesn't stop there. He also says that to oversee this massive convoy, he needs to send 24 of his top barbarian generals.
And generals don't travel alone.
Never. They have their personal guards, their retinues, their staff. So when you start stacking all of that up, the handlers, the generals, their entourages, what are we really looking at?
An army.
You are looking at an elite strike force of roughly 10,000 battle-hardened veterans.
Marching right into the capital.
Exactly. And he even asks the local officials along the route to prepare food and supplies for them. He's basically asking the emperor to fund and cater his own invasion.
That is incredibly audacious. So this paperwork lands on the emperor's desk.
Yeah.
What is the reaction in the court? I mean, surely someone pulled out a calculator and said, hey, wait a minute.
Well, this is where you see the fracture in the Tang court.
Yeah.
You'd think the alarm bells would be deafening, and for some people they were. Prime Minister Yang Guzong sees this memorial and basically loses his mind.
He probably felt so vindicated, I told you so.
Totally. He goes to the emperor and argues this isn't a gift, it's a coup. He says there is no strategic difference between this convoy and a siege army.
And it wasn't just the prime minister, right? There was a local official, too.
Yes, Da Shisun. He's the Henan Yinso, a high-ranking governor of the province the horses would have to pass through.
The guy dealing with the logistics on the ground.
He's the technocrat in this story. He sees the request, does the math we just did, and sends a flying memorial, a secret, urgent dispatch to the capital. He warns the emperor the troop numbers are dangerous and suggests a polite refusal.
So you have the prime minister and the governor both waving massive red flags, but Emperor Xuanzong, he hesitates. Why? Why was he so blind to this? 10,000 soldiers for a horse delivery seems pretty suspicious.
And that's the tragedy of Xuanzong in his later years. He wants to believe the best. He's thinking, okay, 3,000 horses is a generous gift. Maybe Lushan is just being thorough. He's terrified of being wrong.
Because if he accuses his best general of treason and he's wrong,
he causes the very civil war he's trying to avoid. But there's a deeper reason for his blindness, and it's not just wishful thinking, it's bad intelligence.
Right. It goes back to that nickname, the red-hearted child.
The red-hearted child, that's what Lushan was called. A symbol of his supposed pure loyalty. It implies, a pure childlike heart with no duplicity.
And the emperor bought into this narrative.
He bought into it because his own intelligence network confirmed it. Specifically, reports from an imperial inspector named Fu Nulin.
Okay, let's talk about Fu Nulin, because this is where this story turns into, like, a detective drama.
It really does. So, the emperor had sent this guy, Fu Nulin, to inspect Lushan's region. He trusted him implicitly. And Fu Nulin came back with a glowing review. Said Lushan was a patriot, completely loyal, zero threat.
So the emperor trusted the inspector, and so he trusted the general. But there was one person in the palace who didn't trust Fu Nulin at all.
Gao Lishi.
The famous eunuch.
The very savvy eunuch. In a lot of historical dramas, eunuchs are the villains. But in this story, Gao Lishi is the hyper-competent loyalist. He's the one actually looking out for the emperor. He personally disliked Fu Nulin, found him arrogant, but he also suspected his reports were just too good to be true. He'd heard rumors of bribery.
So Gao Lishi decides to do a little investigating of his own. And the source gives us this incredible scene. It feels like something out of a movie.
It's amazing. Fu Nulin has just come back from a trip to Lushan's territory. Gao Lishi decides to pay him a friendly visit at his home. Just a casual drop-in. When he arrives, the servants tell him that Fu Nulin is currently taking a bath.
A vulnerable moment.
Extremely. So Gao Lishi says, "Oh, no problem, I'll wait." And he just invites himself into Fu Nulin's study to sit down.
The one time you really don't want guests just wandering around your house.
Exactly. And while he's sitting there waiting for the man to finish scrubbing up, he glances at the desk.
And there it is. The smoking gun.
A letter. A private letter from Lushan to Fu Nulin, just sitting there. Fu Nulin was so comfortable, so arrogant, he didn't even think to lock it away. Gao Lishi picks it up. He starts reading.
And this is not just friendly chit-chat, I take it.
Far from it. The letter is totally incriminating. And Lushan is asking for specific secrets about the court, about what's happening inside the palace. And most damningly, he's asking Fu Nulin to cover for him if anyone gets suspicious.
It's proof. He wasn't just an incompetent inspector. He was on the payroll.
He was a double agent. And just as Gao Lishi is reading this, realizing the betrayal, Fu Nulin finishes his bath and walks into the room.
Oh, the panic must have been incredible.
He sees Gao Lishi holding the letter. He lunges, snatches it away, tries to hide it. But it's too late. The damage is done. Gao Lishi has seen enough.
What I love about this is Gao Lishi's quick thinking. He doesn't make a scene. He doesn't arrest him on the spot.
No, he plays it cool. He just leaves, goes straight to the emperor, and spills everything. Tells him Fu Nulin is taking bribes, acting as a spy. The emperor is furious. He trusted this man, and he's been sold out. He orders an immediate raid on Fu Nulin's house.
And the raid turns up everything. Piles of bribes, letters from Lushan. But there's a detail here I found really interesting about Yang Guifei, the emperor's favorite consort.
This is a crucial detail. It shows Gao Lishi's loyalty not just to the state, but to the emperor's personal happiness. While going through the confiscated letters, Gao Lishi finds correspondence that mentions Yang Guifei.
Because Lushan had a bit of an obsession with her, didn't he?
He did. There were all these weird rumors. He had this ritual adoption where he called her mother, but it was all very strange. Gao Lishi sees these letters and realizes if the emperor reads them, it could cause a massive scandal. It would hurt Yang Guifei and break the emperor's heart.
So quietly, he just destroys those specific letters.
He protects the emperor's feelings even while he's saving his throne. That's a dedicated servant.
So Fu Nulin is caught red-handed. The emperor wants him dead immediately. But Gao Lishi steps in with some advice that is just strategically brilliant. This is real 4D chess.
It is. The emperor wants to execute Fu Yulin for treason, but Gao Lishi says, wait, if you execute him for treason, and Lushan will know that we've found the letters, he'll know his spy network is compromised.
And if he knows that,
He might panic. He might realize the jig is up and launch his attack tomorrow, and they aren't ready for that. They need to buy time.
so they need a cover story.
Exactly. Gao Lishi suggests executing him for corruption in procurement. Basically, say he stole money on his business trips. That way, Fu Yulin is gone, the spy is removed, but An Lushan just thinks his guy got caught with his hand in the cookie jar.
That is so smart. It creates a fog of war.
Yeah.
So Fu Yulin is executed. And this is the real turning point for the emperor, right? The red-hearted child narrative is completely shattered.
It's gone. The emperor realizes the man who vouched for An Lushan was a liar, and that forces him to look at the whole horse proposal with fresh eyes. He finally has to admit that the prime minister and the governor were right. This isn't a gift, it's a threat.
So now the emperor has to respond. He can't accept the horses because that means letting an army in.
Yeah.
But he also doesn't want to just declare war yet.
So he sends a messenger, a guy named Feng Shenwei, with a handwritten edict. And the logic in this edict is just classic bureaucratic rejection.
It's not you, it's the weather excuse.
That's a perfect way to put it. The emperor writes, "Thank you so much for your loyalty. We love the idea of the horses. However,
As always, a however.
it is early autumn, the harvest is ongoing, and also it's just really hot right now. It would be cruel to make the horses travel in this heat."
So please keep them there for now.
Exactly. He says, wait until winter, and when winter comes, don't worry about sending your men. We will send our own officials to pick them up. You just keep your soldiers in Fanyang.
Boom. He completely dismantles the Trojan horse plan without ever accusing An Lushan of treason. He just politely declines the escort.
It strips him of his excuse to march. If An Lushan marches now, it's open rebellion. He can't pretend it's a delivery anymore.
So let's go to Fanyang, to An Lushan's headquarters. The messenger, Feng Shenwei, arrives with this letter. An Lushan must have known this was coming. He has spies everywhere.
He almost certainly knew the plan had failed, and he is furious. He decides to drop the charade of the loyal subject completely.
And the description of the messenger's arrival is terrifying. It's not a nice reception with tea.
Not at all. And Lushan lines his headquarters with rows of soldiers. The source talks about shimmering swords and forests of banners. It's pure military intimidation. He wants the messenger to feel small, to smell the violence in the air.
And An Lushan himself, he breaks protocol in a huge way.
He's sitting on a hue bed, which is basically a barbarian-style chair or platform. Now, in the Tang court, when you receive an imperial edict, you stand or you kneel. You show submission, and Lushan is just lounging there. It's a massive insult.
It's him saying, I play by my own rules now.
Pretty much. So Feng Shenwei reads the edict. Too hot, wait for winter. How does An Lushan take it?
Poorly, I'm guessing.
He snaps. He actually brings up Yang Guifei, saying, I heard the consort was learning to ride, so I wanted to send these for her.
Wow, a little dig at the emperor, throwing his personal life back in his face.
It's a huge dig. And then he just shouts, if you don't want them, fine, let the horses die of old age. But he doesn't stop there. He refuses to write a formal reply, which, in imperial bureaucracy, is unheard of. You always write back.
Instead, he gives a verbal message, and it's a threat.
He tells Feng Shenwei, tell the emperor that even if I don't send the horses, I will come to the capital myself in October to observe politics.
Observe politics. That's the ancient version of I'm coming to clean house.
It is a thinly veiled threat of invasion. He's saying, I'm coming and I'm bringing my army, whether you want the horses or not.
So Feng Shenwei has to carry this terrifying message back. He returns to the capital, goes to the emperor, and reports everything. The insolence, the weapons, the refusal to stand, the final threat.
And this is the moment where reality finally sinks in for Emperor Xuanzang. The source describes him as being shocked, ashamed, and angry.
Ashamed is a really powerful word there.
It is. He's ashamed because he realizes he was the fool. He defended An Lushan against his own prime minister. He ignored officials. He put his faith in a red-hearted child who turned out to be a wolf. He knows he's been played.
And Yang Guifei is there too, isn't she?
She is, sitting silently by his side. The text just says she sighs. It's this tragic image. The two of them, in their opulent palace, realizing the golden age is ending, and the person they doted on is the one coming to destroy it all.